All right, team, welcome back to TNT Digital Mindset. Today, I'm really excited to dive into some cutting-edge stuff. I've been poring over the latest research on digital trends, and honestly, it's fascinating. I've even leveraged some advanced AI, yeah, you heard that right, to break down the core insights. This way, we can get straight to the actionable strategy. So without further ado, let's jump in.
Welcome back to TNT Digital Mindset. We've analyzed the latest data on API communication styles to help you sharpen your strategic thinking. Today, we're going to do a speed run through all the major API styles, the very ones that power, well, pretty much the entire modern internet.
So, let's kick things off with the big question. What even is an API? Well, at its heart, an application programming interface is kind of like a universal translator for computers. It's the set of rules that lets totally different pieces of software have a conversation, making sure they understand each other perfectly, even if they were built by different teams in different languages on different planets.
And this isn't some abstract techie thing. It's happening constantly, all around you. Every time your weather app magically knows the forecast, or you call a ride and see the car moving on a map, that's an API working its magic. Just think of them as these millions of tiny digital handshakes happening every single second.
Okay, so to really get a handle on where things are now, we've got to look at where it all started. So let's dive into the classics. These are the foundational building blocks of the modern web.
First up is REST, and we like to call REST the avocado toast of APIs. Why? Because it showed up in the early 2000s, and suddenly it was everywhere. It stands for representational state transfer, and its big idea was to organize data into these neat little things called resources. A resource is just a noun, like a user, a product, or an order, and each one gets its own unique web address. And the way it works is actually pretty simple. Your app, the client, sends out an HTTP request. It uses a verb, like get if it wants to read some data, post if it wants to create something new, or delete to get rid of it. The server gets the message, does its thing, and then sends back a neat, structured response, usually in a super easy-to-read format called JSON. It's simple, it's predictable, and it just works.
Now, here's something absolutely crucial about REST. It's stateless. That means the server has the memory of a goldfish. It treats every single request like it's the first time it's ever heard from you. It doesn't remember what you asked for 5 seconds ago. Now, that might sound kind of inefficient, but it's actually a superpower. It makes the whole system incredibly reliable and way easier to scale up.
All right, now let's meet REST's older, much more formal cousin, SOAP. And if REST is avocado toast, SOAP is the kind of API that wears a three-piece suit to the beach. And get this, it stands for Simple Object Access Protocol, which has got to be one of the most ironic names in tech history, because there's nothing simple about it.
And this chart really just lays it all out, doesn't it? REST is casual, it's flexible, it uses that lightweight JSON. SOAP, on the other hand, is super strict. It uses a much heavier language called XML for everything, and it demands this really formal contract called a WSDL. You're going to find SOAP in places that need bulletproof reliability. We're talking banks, governments, big enterprise systems. Meanwhile, REST is running pretty much all the web and mobile apps you use every single day.
But of course, technology never stands still. The classics were great, but they had their limits, especially when smartphones took over the world. This pushed us into a new phase, an evolution with a new breed of APIs built specifically for efficiency. Here's the core problem developers were running into with REST, especially on mobile. Sometimes, the API would send back a mountain of data when you only needed a tiny piece. That's called overfetching, and it eats up your data plan. Other times, you wouldn't get enough, so your app had to make a bunch of different requests to get the whole picture. That's underfetching. Either way, it was slow and clunky. So what was the solution? Enter GraphQL, developed over at Facebook. It totally flips the script. Instead of the server deciding what to send you, your app, the client, sends a super specific query. It's literally like a shopping list where you say, I want the user's name, their age, and their phone number. That's it. And in one single request, you get exactly what you asked for, no more, no less. But what if you don't really need all that flexibility? What if your number one priority is just raw, unbelievable speed? Well, that's where gRPC comes in. This is the point where APIs stop being all chatty and just get down to business and become ridiculously fast. And understanding this is absolutely key for anyone building with a TNT digital mindset.
So what's the secret to gRPC's speed?
Well, it doesn't bother with human-readable text like JSON. Instead, it uses something called protocol buffers, which is a super compact binary format. This makes it perfect for internal microservices. You know, all those little independent services that work together behind the scenes to make a big application run. They need to talk to each other constantly and at lightning speed. And gRPC is the perfect power tool for that job.
Okay, we've gone from the classics to the evolution. Now it's time for the revolution. The next wave of APIs didn't just tweak the old model. They ripped it up and started over, completely changing how clients and servers talk to each other. See, the classic request model has this one big flaw, especially for anything that needs to happen in real time. The client has to constantly bother the server, asking, "Got anything new? How about now? Anything yet?" This is called polling, and it's basically the tech equivalent of a kid in the back of the car yelling, "Are we there yet?" over and over. It's just so inefficient. This is the problem that webhooks solve so elegantly. A webhook is an API that calls you. Instead of your app constantly checking for updates, you just tell the server, "Hey, relax, I'll give you my number. Just call me when something actually happens." So when an event occurs, like a payment goes through, the server sends the data straight to you. No more annoying polling.
But what if you need a true, live, back-and-forth conversation? For that, we have WebSockets. This tech opens up a persistent, two-way communication line between the client and the server. It's like instead of hanging up the phone after every sentence, you just decide to keep the line open.
And this comparison makes the difference totally clear. A webhook is that one-way push, the "I'll call you when it's ready" for specific events. A WebSocket is that continuous two-way conversation, the "let's keep the line open." This is what powers all the real-time stuff you love. Live chat apps, online multiplayer games, collaborative documents, all of it.
So, at this point, you're probably wondering, why so many different styles? Why can't we just pick one and use it for everything? And the answer gets to the very heart of a modern TNT digital mindset. It's all about using the right tool for the right job.
This timeline really tells the whole story. Every one of these styles was invented to solve a very specific pain point of its time. Back in the day, big companies needed strict contracts, so we got SOAP. Then the web needed something simple and flexible, so REST was born. Mobile came along and needed data efficiency, which gave us GraphQL. Microservices needed insane speed, so gRPC came to the rescue. And finally, we needed instant updates, which led to webhooks and WebSockets. It's a story of problems and solutions.
Ultimately, no matter which style you're using, the big picture is this. APIs are the invisible engine of our digital world. They're the glue holding everything together, the messengers carrying all the data, and the negotiators making sure the entire global software ecosystem can actually function. Truly grasping that is a huge part of excelling with the TNT Digital Mindset.
Which brings us to one final big question to leave you with. We've seen APIs evolve to solve problems of structure, then efficiency, then speed, then real-time communication. So, what do you think is next? What's the next big technological headache that will require us to invent a whole new style of API?
If you want to master the digital economy and stay on top of these trends, make sure to subscribe to TNT Digital Mindset. Thanks for listening.